All right, it looks like we are live. Hey guys, to anyone who may be watching this, my name is James Pettit. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you probably already know me. But anyway, so a number of things, a number of order of business items. So Rescue. Rescue is a project that I've been working on for, if you want to take the entirety of it, about 15 years. So I'm really excited that finally we have essentially some of the pieces together necessary to get things moving. Originally, I wanted Rescue to be a animated series, and just because of funding reasons, it made more sense to do something that was more of a graphic novel format that was in an animated style. Okay, so with tonight's live stream, something I wanted to do, something I've been wanting to do for a while, is to do live streams for two reasons. One, so that I had a medium to be able to explain the 3D process, kind of give a behind the scenes look at what we're going to be creating, but also update the viewers and those who are interested in just our progress, how things are going, etc., etc. So one of the reasons that things have changed recently is because we now have a small team of people working on this project. It's not just me anymore. I have a couple of writers hired that are beginning their process next week. Let's see, and also I have a amazing concept artist. You can see some of her work on screen. We're going to be using that tonight. Her name is Anne-Marie Wells. Her website should be in the description of the YouTube video, so be sure to check that out. And the writer's websites and links should also be in the description. And that's going to be Nato Jacobson and William Willer. And I'm really tremendously excited to see some of the work in the upcoming weeks and months on this project. Because ultimately, without a good solid story, no project is really going to have you lose the entire foundation. So I'm really excited to see the work in the coming weeks and months. So that's pretty much the update as far as what we have things as far as the overall process. Hoping, of course, that will be much. I'll have more information in the very near future, but that's what we have for now. Obviously, very much in the beginning stages, even though this is something I've been working on for years and years. So without further ado, let's jump into getting and to making this model. So I have here a reference image that, like I said, looks absolutely amazing. This is going to be one of the standard weapons for this series. Let me make sure this is X-ray mode. So tonight, I'll probably just have time to trace things. And I won't be able to give a full-on tutorial necessarily of all the details of what I'm doing. Most types of things for 3D nowadays, you can learn. There's video after video. I don't want to bore you with things that you could find 100 videos on the internet about, but I do want to kind of pick up the highlights of what I'm doing, and that way, after you've learned some of the basics, you can come back and watch something like this and say, oh, okay, so here's the process for doing something a little bit more advanced. So let's see. Most of what we're going to be doing is kind of a trace here. Create your standard loop cut. It's with a Control R. And let us see how we want to do this. Probably oversimplify this for a second, and then maybe later we can fill in better details, but we'll go ahead and do that. All right. we got the very, very basic shape here. And as you'll notice, we want another loop cut here, just to make sure we get rid of that guy. Cool. Scale along Z and press 0. Pretty routine stuff. Gonna merge. If I can remember the hotkey after they changed it years ago. Let's see, that should be. Let's see, I can't remember it. Let's take a look at. Let's see. Mesh. I can never remember where they changed the. It used to be, I think, Alt M was the hotkey for merging. Come on. Here we go. All right. So just M. Yeah. Should have figured. So we want to do M at last. Perfect. So we'll probably essentially create the basic shape here and then just cut and slice away as needed. Extrude this, scale things down. All things that, you know, all the standard basics type of stuff that if you're into Blender, if you're into Blender basics, these you should already have a good grasp on. All right, perfect. Okay. We got the basic shape. Topology is not completely great in edge flow, but yeah, let's see if we can start with this. And this is going to be a little bit wacky with this piece right here. I might even scoot things down or just create some extra topology, extra geometry, I should say, rather. Let's see. In fact, we may just do a standard knife cut. Yeah, there we go. That's going to make more sense. And we shall make sure that this is, if I can remember it, there we go. Press C if we're doing a knife cut. Press C to go along axis. So C. There we go. C again. Actually, we don't need to press C again, but all right, cool. Let's do a merge at last, and we'll come back to that geometry later. So the idea is once we have everything cut out, we should be able to pretty much just extrude this thing. So for example, I can just extrude this out and we already get the basic shape, but of course we don't have any of the details, so we'll want to cut those into the mesh as well, and you know, all that's gonna make things a little bit easier. Of course, you'll notice we've got some little bit of complexity here in the original drawing, and I like that, so I want to make sure that we incorporate it. Let's see. And then some of this we might even be able to use booleans on, but we will see. Let's go ahead and grab this guy. Let's see for going along the axis. And you'll notice these don't necessarily have to be 100% perfect. In fact, you know, I watched an incredibly interesting video about how if we want this to match, if we want this to look realistic, we actually want to create a model and then sculpt it. because real life objects are not perfectly geometrical shapes. Let's see. So there can be some leeway. It doesn't have to be a picture of perfection here. Alright, let's see if we can punch this guy out. Actually, we want to probably extrude this first. So I'm going to switch over to face select, grab these guys. Perfect. Might even want to make that a little bigger. I think I'll leave it as is. We'll press I to extrude inward. Yeah, perfect. One of the things you'll notice about something like concept art, such as this, is it's not necessarily going to, not going to always have perfectly straight lines, and that's, that's okay. Again, technically speaking, a realistic model is actually not going to have perfectly straight lines either. Now, you don't want it just to be like geometry that's just zigzagged across, but you do want it to be something that's not 100% perfect, or else it looks fake. Whereas if you add those imperfections, those slight deviations from a perfect 3D geometry, you get something that looks a little bit better. All right, let's see. So we want to, I'm going to grab, we really want probably a circle shape, so I'm going to come back to that. And I'm guessing we probably want to do subdivision surfaces on this thing. That makes it a little bit more complicated, but there are some advantages, and because we can cut everything out ahead of time pretty much, I don't know that it's going to be quite as much of an issue to do it that way. Come through here again. We'll have to, let's see if we can deal with that geometry now. Actually, let's select this guy, delete it. Oop. Let's see, probably dissolve. So it's going to be the delete key, and we'll say dissolve. Did we dissolve too much? I think we're actually okay. So this guy, maybe actually do something like that, and we can add more. Add more geo. In other words, geometry a little bit later. Also, I appreciate it. If you happen to be watching this, chances are you're watching this when it's as a old video rather than live. I apologize if I'm not speaking loud enough. This is, first time I'm doing this, so I've done videos before, but with the video you can go back, re-record it, live stream. Not so much. All right. Well, let's see. Let's get this this geometry here. Boom, 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 and then we're gonna have to kind of mess this up here. I'm going to actually let's merge these first. Merge at the center, and then grab all these pieces, and you scale along, what is this, Y, and then 0. Perfect. All right. So things like these holes, these I'm less concerned about because they're so tiny. More concerned about just these larger pieces that we want to take into account. And it looks like my geometry here got wonky. Okay, I see what happened. Yeah, so let's scale along the x-axis, and so a lot of it, not much to show for it, but everything's in the underlying geometry. And let's grab this section because this is going to be interesting. This part I'm not too worried about. Again, just trying to get these major areas first. And then later we can come back. So something like these sections, we're probably going to see an extrusion with the bevel. Nothing too complicated. What that will look like is if we, let's see if we grab this geometry here, extrude, and then we extrude this. This is just for demonstration purposes. We're going to extrude this, and then we, let's say we run a bevel on it. Let's see, that's going to be Control B, I think. Yeah. Let's do something really tiny. You'll see that if we turn off X-ray, it creates this really nice looking separation effect. So we will reset things, but that's where we're headed for once we have this all in place. Perfect. Let's turn X-ray on so we can see this. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. So we want to go back to. It looks like the artist has a slant here, which I really like. So I'm going to go with that, and then C, so that we're along a straight line. Perfect. All right, and then K for the knife tool, and then C. It looks really high, so let's do some magic here. If I press G and then press G again, I can move it. I can move this point. This is really small. Let me zoom in. I can move this point along basically this edge axis, and I can make sure that the angle here stays consistent. And then finally, let's see if we can do this, and then press C. That looks looking a little bit better. It's not entirely even, but yeah, that doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to just to be OCD, I'm gonna dissolve this edge. Let's see, dissolve edges. If it will let me, it may not. It may say, yeah, okay, it's gonna complain about that. So I'm gonna just make this easy for ourselves. Perfect. Let me dissolve that edge. Okay, so far so good. Blip, blip, blip. All right, so the last thing I'm seeing, I'm really not even concerned about this guy too much. This feature here, honestly, that could probably go on top. This is going to be interesting. I'll probably need to slice across there, and then so let's. I'm actually going to try using this geometry, or this vertex, and then gonna do that, and let me do that again. Sorry this is so hard to see. Let's see. For my next video, I may have to increase the vertex size because it does make it easier to see. But hopefully you can imagine where things are if you can't see them directly. So let's see. K, and then C. I might actually leave that there, depending on how many pieces we separate this into. Because I might, because it makes more sense. I know it'd be it'd let me brag a little bit more if I could keep this all as one piece, but I think this makes more sense to keep this separate. So I'm thinking that's what we go with. All right, so finally, So this, you know, that's the standard hole cutout, nothing too crazy. It's amazing how much easier this is to think about, just because we have all the geometry mapped out for us ahead of time. One of my biggest issues in the past has been trying to work with creating an object without reference. And while this may be a good exercise, some people can do it, but I'm not sure that I kind of I don't think I fit in that category, because you're having to often backtrack and you're not able to plan for certain features and things, and so it just gets messy. Of course, you could do something like a prototype and throw in booleans, punch holes and stuff, and then later fix the topology. But yeah. So anyway, but in this case, we have the detail. We already have that mapped out for us. I'm going to say, let's grab this real quick. All right, and let me actually, let's see, it's Shift Control Alt S for shearing this, which lets us rotate that a little bit better, rather than just simply rotating it, which would push this edge out a little bit. We're able to actually slide things and keep this diagonal line a straight line rather than messing it up. Okay, so a couple more things I see. I see this guy up here. This feature, this stuff is okay, I think, for now. This will really affect the bottom of the weapon, but, you know, not necessarily a big deal. And finally, we got this, and we've got our, well, I'm forgetting the name of it, but the handle that reloads whatever cartridge is in there. This will most likely be more of a blaster than a firearm. Just it makes the parents nervous when you switch it to a firearm, which is something I think hopefully this series can address, but we may not be able to start with that issue as a starting topic. And let's see if I can create that. Cool. I'm gonna do some magic here. I've cut into here. Of course, that's created this really ugly extra line. I'm gonna move this here and kind of let's see, join this with F. I think we can use to create an edge here. Yep. So, but now we've got to. There's a couple different ways we could do this. I'm gonna just say delete the face, only the face, and delete this, only the face, and delete this edge. Alright, and we still need to cut into here. I'm just going to delete that edge, and we'll just manually connect things up. Not the most pretty way to do it, but it will work. And that way these angles can be the same. So then we can select all of our edges around this area and press F and fill it in with a face. Terrible geometry, but we can fix that later. Oh, and let's see if we can save this. I feel really bad because normally you want to save much earlier. Let's see. These will be resources, I think, or actually assets. Category, item. So let's see. We're going to use this as our template. Actually, let me. Is it going to let me duplicate this? I'll have to just duplicate that later. So this category would be weapons, and item would be standard weapon. Hopefully I can spell. And we will create a folder for the model. Alright. Standard weapon.blend. Perfect. All right, now we have it saved. So that should save us a lot of misery and heartache later. This piece is going to be external, so we don't have to think about that. Oh, and looks like I also forgot that we want to slice across this. And I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. Delete that face. Perfect. Looks like we have some wonkiness with the normals. Yeah, it's just some normal wonkiness. Mesh normals. Recalculate outside. Perfect. It's one of the great things about videos. You can go back and slow them down, watch them again. I'm going to slice across here. K. Nope. CK. There we go. So of course, there's many different styles and ways we could be doing this. Theoretically, if we had more time, we would actually like maybe match certain angles and make sure that everything was all spiffy and precise and accurate. And the reality is, it's just that takes more work. And for this, we're not creating a CAD diagram. This is just, the purpose of this is to make it look good, and that's pretty much it. So if I had time to hire professional modelers and hire them full time, then we might be able to actually do things like make sure that this angle matches that angle, and there's a standard. But for what we're doing here tonight, it's like, okay, that's overkill. All right. Let us see. And the way, probably one of the most complicated parts about this geometry is actually going to be this right here, because this would probably jut out a little bit. So I'm going to create some geometry. I'll just actually create it all the way from the bottom and make it match there. And so we'll probably pull this out. If we can imagine extruding this, but then softening this edge so that it stands out a little bit like that, if you will. But I digress. Okay. Let's save again. Almost done. And that might be it for the night. Really just getting the this thing sketched out. Feels a little bit boring, but one of the one of the great things about doing all this work ahead of time, rather than just creating the 3D model and then we could maybe create the outline and extrude things, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier if we've gone ahead and cut the detail into our mesh ahead of time. Especially if we decide to make the subdivision surfaces, we can go ahead and start creating geometry all across the faces in the different areas, and that will allow us to keep everything as quads and so on and so forth. Which reminds me, probably should have sliced this earlier, but here we go. Perfect. And click there. And let's see if I can. Was it gonna let me do a? Well, let me do a loop cut because we've got all this crazy geometry here. But Let's see if we can. We should definitely be able to move things along the axes to fix stuff if we need to in a second here. That's really not what I want. We will go with that for now and clean it up in a later session. One more. And perfect. And this is what I mean if we grab this by using Alt Shift and click the edge, then we can move this down and everything's perfect. So overall, it's like I'm actually surprised at how, despite the complexity of this, we're able to get a lot of things with straight across lines, and so that makes my job easier. So thank you, Anne-Marie. There's of course a few things like this where it's not, but because this is going to be a separate piece, that shouldn't be too crazy. So, all right. So we can kind of see if we select this, all the details that we've cut out here, and that's going to really help us later as we start extruding this. All right, that is it for tonight. Wish I could have worked on this. This handle is going to be interesting because this part can't be simple straight across flat lines. This is going to be the most complex shape, sort of ish, in the entire model. So, specifically the handle. So that's going to be interesting. But that, I think, does it for tonight. Hopefully next time we can get this lower area and the magazine and maybe also the optics here, which I love, by the way. It looks really cool. And then also the barrel. But those pieces I'm not as concerned about. They should be, optics is going to be interesting because I need to think about what that will look like in 3D. The rest of this should be pretty simple. So, all right, well, if you have watched this video and have stayed with me to the end, I appreciate it, and hopefully we can do more of these soon. Let me know in the comments if there's more things you'd like to see. Like I said, this is my first stream of this type. Ideally, I'd like to do some behind the scene videos like this where we get kind of deep into the guts of how this works. But and part of the reason I'm doing that is so that I can document this, I can show the workflow and the process, but also so that people who are interested in can watch. But for those who are not interested in the behind the scenes as much, but interested in the project, hope to have videos that are maybe more dedicated to that as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you soon.